Hello, Braves country. It's Coach Ken Anderson coming to you for Hardcore Braves. And tonight on a special edition of Coach's Corner, you ever know when Ryan joins it? It's a special edition. And here's Rhino, and he's going to be here. And we just had to draft, Ryan. So we decided to bring in the guy that I think is a draft guru, prospects. I love all his stuff. Matt Powers. He comes from Battery Power. You also still do the NCAA baseball report. You still doing that, Matt?
Yeah, I put everything there that's just too big for battery power or too general for battery power.
Well, we're glad to have you here. And you want to shout out anything you got going on before we get started here tonight, Matt?
That's really it going on for me right now. I mean, I've just done a ton in the last couple days to cover the draft. It's about to start to slow down a little bit, but we're getting ready to come up with our Braves top 30 prospect lists in the next couple weeks, waiting on some of these guys to sign and possibly see what happens at the trade deadline. But that's really the only thing coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when all this starts settling down by like August 4th for you to put out who we really are as our top 30, because that really tells you as we're going into it, especially when we get in the off season in the winter. So let's get after it. We'll start with the picks. We had 21 picks in this draft. That's 20 rounds. Plus, we have the special pick for Baldwin winning Rookie of the Year. And with the first pick, of course, all of us in Atlanta wanted Drew to drop, and we almost had him drop to us. He went all the way to 8, but it wasn't surprising. We lost him. But I had reported, James Ramsey had told me that he thought Gracia might come to us, and he did at number 9. So, can you tell us a little bit about AJ coming out of University of Virginia?
I love his bat. I mean, I once the lottery got announced and it was determined the Braves were nine, I wrote profiles on some of the players I wanted to see the Braves draft at that time. Grassi was one of those guys. It hasn't changed. I mean, that sweet left-handed swing makes contact, doesn't really strike out, takes a lot of walks, hits for power. I mean, he's a potential middle of the order bat. Some people were a little down on him this year because the exit velocity didn't really look the same this year, but he was playing through a bit of a shoulder injury, and he has proven in the past that that exit velocity data is there. So I'm not too worried about that. I think to get him at 9, even at slot value, it would have been a strong pick, but to get him under slot at 9, especially in a draft like this where you're not going to get a true top 10 talent that you'd see in some of the other drafts. I mean, you can't really beat that pick to me.
Yeah, I like the fact that my comp was Nick Markakis. He kind of reminds me of Nick, that really smooth swing. But Ryan had a different comp, and I liked his comp too. Ryan, you want to jump in here on Gracia?
Yeah, the first swing that I saw when I saw him, I think it was Baseball and Stitch that put a video out on the kid because I don't keep up with college baseball much. But as soon as I saw him swing, the first swing that came to my mind was Kerry Carpenter. The way that he kind of really bounces out on that back hip and then he releases everything into the ball. That is really what it reminded me of. And if we get a better, more athletic Kerry Carpenter coming through the Brave system, I think that's a pretty solid first round pick.
The guy I comped him to all along was Kyle Tucker. That sweet left-handed swing, ability to hit for both average and power. I think he's probably not going to be quite the same level as Tucker, but I could definitely see some similarities in the total profile.
Yeah, so if it's Tucker or Markakis or Carpenter, we're going to get a pretty hell of a good hitter there. So defensively, he played really good outfield. He could play in all three positions. Where do you think he'll eventually slot for the Braves?
I think he's going to end up in left field. I think he's got a lot of experience in center. I don't really think he's going to be a center fielder. I don't think he's got enough speed to really hold on to center long term, especially when the Braves have a Michael Harris there. And I don't really think the arm is going to be ideal for right. So I think he's kind of going to be pushed into left. But with the bat, I'm not really worried about that so much for him.
Right.
Um, Overall, if you had to grade his athleticism, just as would you put it in center field or would you put it more in the corners, just athleticism wise?
Corners, I think. It's close. He's a borderline center fielder. If the Braves didn't have Harris, I think you'd keep throwing him out there in center to until he can't do it anymore. But I think having that long-term answer in center kind of helps push him off sooner.
Yeah, I think he's really solid, and it's kind of funny. And I think they kind of wanted to get some guys that are more slated for left field because of our situation coming up in a couple of years with our at our major league club to make sure we have bona fide corner outfielders. And one of those guys may be Carter Beck. Now, when you pull up his highlights, Matt, he's tremendous defensively, but I don't know if he'll stick in center as well. So what are your thoughts on Carter, starting off just on the defensive side of it?
I think he's a solid defender. I'm not sure that he's going to stick in center. I think he's just solid in center. I think other guys like a Harris are better than him, so he's probably going to end up having to move to the corner at some point. But he's a guy that's risen a lot this spring, has a background where he's had a little bit more limited development than some of the other top college players. I mean, growing up in Canada, previous multi sport background, going to a smaller school for his freshman year before he went to Indiana State. But since he's got to Indiana State, he's not only hit for production, the metrics, especially the contact metrics, are amazing. He hasn't really faced any great pitching yet, but I pulled up his stats against all of the better teams that he's faced and the better pitchers that he's faced. I think it was some 80-ish plate appearance sample, and he more than held his own against those guys. I think it was only like two or three homers, a lot of doubles, more walks than strikeouts, over 300 average. So I'm really not overly concerned about how he's going to do from a competition level.
Yeah, I think that Ryan asked me about the schooling, and I said, well, he comes out of the same kind of demographic as Drake Baldwin, and at Southeast Missouri State. So, Ryan, what you got to see some highlights? I sent you some of Carter. What you got to ask Matt?
I would say my question is what is his bat profile really? What do you think it profiles to if he makes it to the major league level? Because obviously not everybody's going to pan out. But what is he? What's one comp you got for him bat wise?
Bat wise, I think he's going to be a top third of the lineup hitter, probably more of a one or two type of hitter than a three. I think he's going to be a guy that hits for average, gets on base, hits a lot of doubles. Will hit some home runs, but I don't think that's going to be the biggest part of his game. Will also steal some bases. Uh, don't really have an exact comp for him, but I think that's the kind of player that you're talking about with him.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find a comp. I was trying to as well. It is kind of funny. He's got kind of that same swing that Drake does to be able to hit the ball into the gaps. And so if he develops some little bit more power, I can see him really being good gap hitter. What about the arm? Is he more, if we're going to put him in the corner, do you see him more right or left field?
I could see him probably being more of a left fielder. I don't think he's got the ideal arm for right, but I think he's probably also, just like Grossi, more of a left fielder when he does eventually have to move.
I agree. Anything else, Ryan, on Carter Beck, Indiana State? All right. So then they did something like I love what they're doing, and I saw your tweet on it too, and I kind of thought these underslot guys. Then you can go get these young high school pitchers and talk them into not signing and going to college. Let's go through them: Jensen, Hirschcom, Cole, Dennis. Now Will is Libbert is from Ole Miss, but then they go Tyson Grukowski. And then Caden McCarthy is the one that I just jumped off the page when I saw. I mean, 99, and he looks daunting on the mound. So, of that group of pitchers, can you tell us about that group we went next picks on?
McCarthy is also, well, he's my second favorite one. Hirschkorn would definitely be my favorite, but McCarthy, if he had a little bit more time in the 26 class, because he reclassified from the 27 class fairly late, he probably would have gone higher along with him being a little undersized at just 6 foot even. But the stuff is very loud. I think he's going to take some time to develop some of the shapes of his pitches a little bit. But you can't teach the raw stuff that he already has, and I think he's going to fill in a little bit more. Some that are more optimistic on him have given him a chance at 4+ pitches in the future. I'm
Uh,
not quite sure that he's going to reach that kind of ceiling, but I think he's got more than enough to at least be a middle of the rotation type of arm. The fastball is what really stands out. And then at the combine, they have that high school game, the high school simulation game that they play, and he really stood out at that. That's where I think he probably made himself a little bit more money going up against some of the top players because he missed a lot of the showcase action against the top players from this class because of the late reclassification last summer. So that definitely helped his status. Hirschkorn, he's a guy that really opened eyes last year. 6'7", plenty of room to fill out, athletic, really big multi-sport background. I think he averaged like almost 20 points a game in basketball this year. But in the area code games, he went 3 innings and struck out 9 batters, all swinging. I mean, when he already gets into the mid to just slightly upper mid 90s. I think he tops out 96 right now, but there's still a lot of room to fill out in that frame, so it's not hard to picture him hitting close to that 100-mile-per-hour mark. I think the slider is also a potential swing and miss pitch for him with further development once he fills in that body, but most guys that you see 6'7", 6'8" as pitchers, they really struggle with their command just because of those long limbs. He's not one of those guys, so that's a huge plus for the Braves to get to work with that and his stuff. So he's definitely my favorite. I actually had a first round grade on him, late first round, so I had him, I think, 29th in my rankings. So getting a guy like that in the third round is just basically an extra first round pick this year. But of course, I think he's really going to cost some money. I've heard some of the numbers on him, and I think he's going to be the Briggs McKenzie of this class in terms of how much overslot he is. Cole Dennis is a former two-way, well, even up till this year was a two-way star. He hit a ton of homers this year down in Florida, but the changeup and command are going to need some time to work. But you've already got 2 pitches in the fastball and the slider that can get swings and misses. And I think there's still plenty of growth room with him as well, especially being a two-way guy that's going to start to concentrate on pitching full time. I'm going to skip over Libet for a second, get to Grolkowski just to cover all of the prep arms. But he is another prep arm from a cold weather state, which the Braves do love their young for the class and or cold weather arms, multi-sport and two-way types of players because they feel like there's more room for development. And they do seem to work well with guys like that. He's just another one of those with the combination of the fastball and that slurvy breaking ball. I think he's going to need to improve the off-speed pitch in order to remain a starter. But the spin that he's able to show already gives me hope that he can fill in that frame a little bit more and just continue with his development. Getting back to Libert, he's got a solid 4-pitch mix, even though he hasn't really been consistent with his command, which has kept him out of their rotation this spring at times. I think if he's able to improve the command and then just start to refine those pitches just a little bit more, he's got the chance to have 4 average or better pitches, which seems like a starter profile, and I think that's what the Braves are kind of hoping for with him. But even if he isn't able to improve the command, he's got that chance to be a multi-inning reliever, which in this today's game is definitely something that they could use as a weapon, especially from the left side. So I definitely like that group of pitchers that they got.
Interesting. I think when I see him draft him, that's exactly how I see him. Major League Baseball, they consider a good starter now, already 5 innings, 6 innings, and they need that guy to go 6 and 7. And I can see Will being that guy. Ryan, you got something on these pitchers that we drafted? A whole group of them, 5 of them.
No, I think it's. I mean, the Braves have an idea of what they want out of these high school prep arms: big body, high velocity, potential for development with the off speed and sliders. But I just love the name Hirschkorn, man. That's just a baseball name right there. I love that last name.
So, Matt, we're going to be able to hold off LSU and be able to sign him, you think?
I'm pretty sure. I think if they had any doubts at all, they probably would have gone with somebody in the 19th or 20th round as a backup plan. And the fact that they didn't just shows that they're confident because Hirschkorn's going to take a lot of money over slot. And I don't think they are willing to waste that money. So I think they're pretty confident that that deal gets done eventually.
I agree with you. I think so, and you would know better than I do. But I just think the way the Braves act, they kind of must have had inside channels. Now they go two catchers, and we got a lot to ask about the catchers. But they go two catchers. They get the high school kid Jake Brenner, and then they go and get Jacob Jarrell from Clemson. I've got to see him play. I think he's a pretty good defensive catcher. But Matt, what do you think about the two catchers that go back to back right here?
I'm a big fan of Brenner. I think the hit tool on him is very advanced, especially for a high school catcher. He's got a lot of work to do behind the plate because doesn't have a ton of time behind the plate yet. He's played a lot of shortstop and third base so far in his high school career, so I think that's going to take some time and could end up getting him sent to the FCL despite the advanced hit tool. He's very, very athletic for the catcher position. Above average times, probably would slow down if he ends up catching just because of the demands of the position. I don't think power is going to be a huge part of his game, but I'm less worried about that when you combine that hit tool and athleticism. He's just going to need to really refine his work behind the dish. I think that's going to be the biggest key for him. But another cold weather product that they seem to love, and yet another kid from Wisconsin in this draft. They drafted three of those, so that is definitely a sign that they like this year's crop from Wisconsin. Now,
Yeah.
Jarrell, big power this year. I think his
Yeah.
total was 18 homers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure just how much he's going to hit, but this is a senior sign who's going to be very underslot. So you're pretty much at this point just looking for a tool or two that you think are going to be able to translate on that guy that's going to sign for most likely under 100,000. And that tool is obviously the power. I think he's shown some signs with the defense. I think it's also going to need to continue to be refined, but there's definitely a package there to work with, and the Braves clearly have a hole throughout the minor leagues at catcher. So I think getting a guy like this who's already proven with his production in the ACC just seems like a strong pick to add into the system at this spot.
He comes out of a really good program, though, in Clemson, and I know their head coach does a really good job. Ryan, you got anything on the two catchers? Nothing. Now we get to the two guys, and of course, Matt probably knows I want to talk about one of them big time, and he would be the surprise steal of the draft. But yeah, Ben Ziegler gets taken. He's out of Hawaii. He's a first baseman, and don't really know a lot about this kid. When he got drafted, I hadn't really heard him, but Hawaii games are played at 1 o'clock in the morning, so I don't get a chance to watch them. But Parker Brocious, I've known since he entered the Tech campus. You won't find a harder working kid, Matt. We go back to back there. Tell us about Parker and Ben.
I'll start with Ben. He's the guy I think the fewest people know because Hawaii and their games aren't really on at a convenient time for us on the East Coast. But he looked good in the MLB Draft League last year. Was hitting the ball consistently enough over 100 miles an hour, exit velocity wise. Was posting a couple 105, 6, 107 exit velocities. He's more of a hitter than he is a power guy. He's got fairly low home run totals, and I think that will continue. I don't think he's going to develop a ton of power. The hit tool is what's going to be what has to carry him. He does have a little bit of versatility, but he's also going to be a senior sign, another under 100K type of player. But they like the bat, so and the versatility with him, so taking a chance on him. But I think Brocious is the steal of the draft. I did hear some people actually talking about him as a potential day one pick, even though he is a senior and a senior sign who's going to come in for a lower bonus. I think he's a potential five tool player now that he's started to add more power. What he's done at Georgia Tech, that slash line, I'm pulling it up right now, 329, 504, 859 with 13 homers and 125 plate appearances. I mean, you can't get more productive than that. And he did that with such great contact rates that you could see that bat working for him. I think he's got a chance to play center. Obviously, he didn't get that chance at Tech because Burris had that spot locked down, but he's definitely a guy I'm very interested to see in center, which would only increase his value.
Yeah. Ryan? Nothing. I'll tell you what, Parker is a tremendous kid. He's from a tremendous family, and he can play anywhere. And I was going to ask the question on Ben because the path to first base is tough in Atlanta's organization. So I'm glad to hear the versatility. So we're not going to bore you by going individually through 11 through 20, but I'll name them. Did it get a third baseman, Ryan Barker, out of high school? Then we go catcher again, Dominic Kibler, Cole Dorland, pitcher, Brady Hamilton, the college pitcher out of Wichita. I did get to see pitch this year. I liked him when I did get to see him. Caleb Klein, outfielder, Dalton Harper, catcher, John Domozino. I don't know how to say that, out of St. Mary's. I did see him pitch against UCLA in the College World Series. I get to see him. Ethan Stade, Austin Foley, and now Adcock. Another pitcher out of Kentucky who I also got to see in the game as well. 11 through 20. Who is in there that you're going, that could be a sneaky pick and somebody that we may not know of? Because like I said, I've seen some of the college kids, but definitely the high school kids I haven't seen.
Barker's a guy I really love. I put out a Braves 10-round mock draft on Friday. I forget what round I had him in, but I actually mocked him to the Braves at that point. That's how much I like him. He's very much older for the prep class. He's already 19.6 years old, so that he's closer to 20 than he is to 19 at this point. But he's got 70 grade speed, feel for hitting. We haven't really gotten to see him hit much in the showcase circuit because he hasn't really done much there. He hasn't participated a ton, but what he's shown this spring has looked good and really made teams buy in. He's had a ton of helium late this spring, so I think he's a guy that could be a steal in that round. And with his age, I think he's a guy that could actually move a little bit quicker for a prep guy. Another guy that I really liked, Cole Dorland, the Canadian pitcher, a little undersized, but he's had some interesting three-pitch mix that where he took a little bit of a tick up to 94. He's gonna need some more time. I didn't really see him getting drafted. I assumed he was going to go to Bama, have a good career there, and probably get to try the draft again in 3 years. But the Braves saw enough with him, and he's going to get to take that development step with the Braves instead of with Bama. So I think he's a guy that could surprise and probably be cheaper now than he would have been in 3 years with that development at Bama. Um, Hamilton is a pitcher who I like his ability to get some swings and misses. I think he's going to need to iron out his command. His stuff hasn't always played at the exact same level as well, so I think that's something that they're going to need to work on him with. Caleb Klein, the outfielder from Southeast Missouri State, this was his first year there after coming from a JUCO, but he's another guy with a very impressive hit tool, and I had him rated much higher than where he actually went in the draft. So he's a guy that I'm excited to see. I don't think power is going to be a huge part of his game, but I really do believe in his hit tool. The catcher that they got in the 16th round, Dalton Harper, I think he might end up being potentially slightly over slot. But he caught one of last year's big helium prospects, Matt Barr. I forget who drafted Barr. He was initially going to go to Tennessee, but he rose so much late because he was going over 100 miles an hour with his fastball. So this is a kid that's not unfamiliar with catching premium stuff. He started out at Georgia Southern, actually, ended up in this New York JUCO, and he was committed to Penn State. I don't think he's a big power guy, but he does have some versatility and some athleticism for the position, so I think he's an interesting guy to watch. Uh, John Demizonio from St. Mary's maybe has one of the best sliders in the class. He doesn't really use it enough. Much lower usage than you'd expect for such a premium pitch, but it's definitely a pitch that I really love. And I think what the Braves might be able to do with him if they're able to add just a little bit more velocity and power into his stuff, he could really take that next step. An older player, but definitely one that I think has room for some growth. The left-hander from Bowling Green, Ethan Stade, had a 14.5 K9 this spring, and he's followed it up and been just lights out at the MLB Draft League. I think right now he has a 123 ERA, 102 WHIP, and 28 strikeouts to 7 walks over 14.2 innings, 17.2 K9. So the velocity isn't big. He's more upper 80s to low 90s from the left side, but the movement on his pitches is what really works for him. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he could do in a pro player development system. Austin Foley is another catcher from Mississippi, a guy that has big power. I think he's got, 34 homers over the last 2 years. The strikeouts are definitely a big issue with him, but when you're talking about a pick this late and that kind of power, it's definitely something worth buying into. Uh, and then Niall Adcock is another guy, a reliever who has a potentially plus slider. Um, Yet another pitcher with a high K9 rate. So I think the Braves knew what they wanted in these last rounds. They wanted to focus on pitchers with swing and miss stuff. They wanted to focus on hit tools, and they wanted to get a little bit of power in there.
And I want to ask two questions off of that real quick. Is to me it looked like going down the end, they were trying to find pitchers that may first of all give depth in the minor leagues, but also could go into that relief row if they don't pan out starters. I saw all the kids out of college the same way. And as far as the catchers, the question would have to be from Braves country because of Murphy getting hurt and whatever, and them just kind of looking around baseball, that I think the Braves realized they didn't have the depth at catcher, and they need to kind of get that coming so they don't have to, get the nothing against the Sandy Loans of the world, but those kind of picks and have some young catcher come up and off the bench. What are your thoughts on those two things?
I feel like that played a part in it, and the catching in the low minors is particularly weak, especially once we're talking from the FCL and the DSL. Although the 117-year-old kid that they signed this January, Polito, they just recently promoted him out of the DSL to the FCL, which is very rare for them to do because they like to keep guys down for that first year for off the field reasons, just to prepare them for that trip to America. But I think they just wanted to load up on catchers, and they didn't spend a ton on any single one. So it kind of feels like there's some tools that they like, and it's just a dart throw to hopefully hit on maybe one or two of them.
Anything on picks 11 through 20? So here's the thing. Everybody wants to know, what is your grade? I do. I got to see it already, but a lot of people have seen this, have not seen you grade. What is the grade on this, letter grade on this draft class to you?
This is definitely an A to me. I think the fact that when you're in the top 10, you're looking for a top 10 kind of talent, and there wasn't really one of those this year unless you wanted to take a real risk on a Justin LeBron or Jacob Lombard and their hit tools, and it's clear that they didn't. So if you can't get a top 10 talent, you might as well take that money, go under slot, and then just load up on quantity. On talented quantity options, and that's what they did, and that's why I really love this draft from them.
I agree. And then the next thing is ESPN come out. I'm not a big on the ESPN rankings, but it just come out and it was sent to me in a DM. 24th, the Braves out of Major League Baseball. Where do you see compared to the rest of the teams how they did in the draft?
Uh, I haven't really compared to rank them, but they're definitely one of my favorite drafts. I think there might be a couple ahead of them because I did look through all the drafts, but it's right up there with almost anyone.
Yeah, good deal. Ryan, you got anything? So I think the White Sox had a really good draft, and I think you might have put that out. The White Sox. It's interesting they took the two shortstops to kind of. I think, and I'm gonna get your thoughts on this real quick. 1-1. Now look, I maybe bias eyes. I thought Von Lackey was the best player in the country. The kid from shortstop, but I'm not saying this. When I saw him, especially against UCLA, and the way they threw their slider against him a lot, I'm not sure if he's a just can't miss. What are your thoughts on the 1-1, the kid shortstop from UCLA?
I'm actually lower on him than anyone. In that composite 500 rankings that I did. I was the only one out of six who did not have him one or two. I had him number three. I think the hype that he was getting, especially at the start of the year, was way overblown, especially after watching him in Japan with the U.S. national team last fall. He really struggled with the bat. Lots of strikeouts, uncharacteristic for him. But up until he homered on that final game, his numbers were a little rough. I think he's going to take more time to really refine that hit tool than what most people had expected from him. That's why I had Brady Emerson as my number one guy and then Lackey as my number two over him.
Yeah, and I told this to the family of Von Lackey, though he couldn't went to a better spot. I think Minnesota, he'll get to the major leagues quick up there. And if you listen to our MLB trade talk, Jeffers could be a guy that could actually buy and sell because of Lackey. All right, so who out of this draft would you say if you had to? I know it's a crystal ball and it's so hard. You know how development is. Who's out of this draft you think can get to Atlanta the first, quickest?
I think it's going to be Gracia. I think he's got such an advanced hit tool. He's got 3 years of competing against the best. That's really going to help him get there the quickest. It's got to be him.
I agree. And then of that 21 guys, it's hard to get all 21, but what's the signability? Now, remind everybody, I think the deadline is July 27th, maybe. I think it's like 2 weeks to sign these guys.
Yep.
You correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but we're going to be able to sign all 21?
I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to sign all 21. Yes, I think unless something pops up on a physical, that they're going to get everyone done.
Yeah, that's a good deal. So, anything that you looked in there that the Braves maybe missed on? Anybody? They were asking me in the DM, so I thought I'd ask: is anybody that they got picked and somebody went behind them? The guy they were talking about is Lombard, of course. He's got ties to us in Atlanta, kind of. So, do you see any misses in the draft where the Braves might have looked back in years and go, "Wow, maybe we should have took this kid"?
There's one that I would have taken. I would have taken Sawyer Strauss-Snyder over Buck. I had Strauss-Snyder. Definitely in my top 15, but I think he's got more to come with the hit tool. I definitely would have taken him because I think he could be a potential 5 tool player. I think once that hit tool really gets to work with the pro player development team, is where he could really take off. I mean, at worst, you're thinking of a Drew Stubbs if he never hits enough because the rest of his tools will probably get him to the big leagues. But he's a guy that I would have loved to have seen. I would have been even okay if the Braves took him with the 9th pick. I'm okay with passing on Lombard because it's clear that they did their homework on him, just like LeBron, and they decided that there wasn't a good enough chance that they were going to be able to make those hit tools workable enough to justify taking them that high and paying them the bonuses that they'd be requesting at those spots.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. So, I was going to get asked about Lombard, so I kind of felt the same way. Ryan, you got anything before we get out of here tonight? All right, Ryan's good. He really want to sit in here and hear you, Matt, because he's trying to learn these young kids. He does a great job at the major level, so he gets to break down some of these videos. So I know I talking to you that you were going to work on the article. When do you expect your article to come out? If it's already come out this afternoon, I'm sorry, man, I've missed it. But when do you expect the article to come out with, on all these prospects?
That came out this afternoon. Now, let me see what time that came out at on Battery Power at 3 o'clock. It published.
Okay, so yeah, right after I got on doing all the work for this. So jump on that. If you haven't subscribed to Battery Power, please do that. You can find Matt on social media. You can go through Battery Power, but also he has his X. Matt, we can't thank you enough for coming on here. We appreciate it, and we wish you the best, and we look forward to following you in these kids, and I can't wait to see your top 30 prospect list. So we do appreciate you coming on here.
Thanks, and thanks for having me. And that's going to be a tough top 30 prospect list to come up with. It looked easy after the first day, but then they added a couple more guys on the second day that I think would have easily made it at some point before the first day of the draft. So now it's time to figure out who's going to get squeezed out of the top 30.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I don't know how y'all guys do it. It's amazing. Me and Ryan have a tough enough time trying to track the 26 down on the Major League Club, at least the top 40. So we appreciate guys like you. All right, Braves Country, out of here. Have a good All-Star break. Remember, relax. Don't be venting on social media. This is your 4 days off as well, okay? We love you, Braves Country. We're out of here. As always, peace.
You know what, boys? You guys are going to be world champions for the rest of your life.